Hi, this is CJ. Welcome to Lace Me Up, a spicy JiKook one-shot story. Last year, Valentine's Day for power couple photographer Jeon Jungkook and top model Park Jimin was a washout. Too busy and too tired to celebrate, the whole thing left Jimin disappointed and sad. This year, Jungkook vows it'll be different and whisks Jimin away for a surprise week in their favorite city, where he has far more planned than just shopping. You can find the written version of this and all my stories on my Patreon at patreon.com/cjmoon, and the original video version of this story, as well as dozens more, on my main channel at youtube.com/@cjmoonwrites. All direct links are also in the description. If you're watching as well as listening, hit the CC button to turn on subtitles. YouTube can auto-translate as well as auto-dub the audio from English into the language of your choice. So settle in, get cozy, and let's begin.
No matter how exciting it sounds, no matter how exotic the location, traveling for work could never be the same as traveling for the pure pleasure of it. You could try to combine them both, but the 9 to 5 or longer grind leaves you too tired at the end of the day to fully enjoy anything that comes later. Last year, Valentine's Day had been a quick glass of champagne and a shared dessert in a hotel bar in New York before retiring early, exhausted from their schedule, which had covered shooting locations across Central Park for Calvin Klein. They hadn't even had the energy to make love that night, which speaks volumes for exhaustion after a day watching Jimin model underwear. And the whole experience left them both feeling down and disappointed, especially Jimin, who adored holiday celebrations. Which is why when Valentine's Day was coming, Jungkook decided then that this year would be different and started planning well in advance. Even if they hadn't left Seoul, a week of being together without work responsibilities would have been a huge treat, but to be able to spend it in a city that held such precious memories for them was downright amazing. So Jungkook spared no expense on the trip. He booked the trip to Tokyo in secret, letting his workaholic model boyfriend think it was business until the minute the plane touched down at Haneda Airport. "What do you mean we have the full week off? But you brought all your camera equipment?" he asked, craning his neck to look behind him as they squeezed through the aisle to disembark the plane. "Baby, I take my camera with me everywhere. You know that. I always have." Jungkook carried the lovingly worn rucksack in front of him, cradling it like a parent would a precious child. "Yes, but what about that meeting you had with Dior before we left? I'll sign the contract when we get back, but that's for the autumn/winter campaign. It's months away. So, we really have a full week with just the two of us. No meetings or anything. Just us." His smile was brighter than it had been in weeks, and Jungkook was thrilled that his plan was the reason for it. "Yup, the whole week. But I have to be honest with you. There's a personal project I want to work on while we are here." He leaned in close to Jimin, whispering under his breath. He knew Jimin would understand why. At least if you feel up to it. No pressure, of course. At Jungkook's words, Jimin's already bright smile got a little bit brighter. Brightest, even, megawatt, with a twinkle in his eyes. He knew what Jungkook's personal projects usually entailed and loved every intimate moment they spent together working on them. The concepts Jungkook came up with for him when it was just the two of them following Jungkook's muse were mind-blowing. Rather than the grueling hours spent modeling and photographing elite fashion brands, where their job was to make the clothes look beautiful, when he was Jungkook's personal main model, his boyfriend spent every minute making sure he felt loved, beautiful, and sexy. Sure, their shoots got a bit spicy sometimes, okay, all the time, and there were so many photos locked securely behind password protection that would never been seen by anyone other than the two of them. But that was just a demonstration of the trust and strength of their relationship. Jimin relished teasing Jungkook until his self-restraint shattered and the camera was abandoned for heated passion. The photos that came after, when Jimin was blissed out and eyes shining, were some of the most powerful Jungkook had ever taken. No one else would ever be allowed to see Jimin as exposed and vulnerable as Jungkook. The love and trust between them was absolute. Sadly, their schedules have been so frantic and stressful lately, they hadn't had time to work anything personal in months. With all this pent-up creativity, Jimin was bubbling with excitement about what Jungkook might have in store for him. "I have a little present for you, baby," Jungkook said as he pulled his lover onto his lap. Jimin was freshly showered and smelled of peaches and vanilla from his body wash. The cotton bathrobe he was wearing slipped open as Jungkook wrapped his arm around his back, and the younger couldn't resist dropping a kiss on his bare shoulder as he handed over the small ribbon package. The pair were comfortably settled into the hotel suite and had spent the past few days casually sightseeing and shopping. And though Jungkook had been taking tons of photos and videos of the two of them, they were of the mundane kind. Street scenes and landscapes. Souvenir photos to be put in a frame on the living room wall. Not a word more had been said about the new project, but he knew better than to think Jungkook had forgotten. Jimin's curiosity had been building, but he trusted Jungkook, and the anticipation was part of the excitement. It bubbled and fizzed under his skin. Tonight was Valentine's Day, though, and he knew before he opened it. This small box wrapped in satin paper was the start of whatever special memory or journey it was that Jungkook had planned for them. He bit his lip, already feeling his heart start to race as he ran his finger along the shiny red length of ribbon before untying it and setting it on the bedside table. The paper bore no designer name, so Jimin could tell that even as immaculately as it was done, Jungkook had wrapped it himself. When he slid the top of the box off, he gasped in delight at what he saw. Lying on a bed of tissue paper was the most beautiful pair of underwear Jimin had ever seen. Creamy white lace and satin, delicately accented with roses embroidered in gold thread and accents of seed pearls. Jungkook knew he adored lingerie. The softness of it against his skin, the way it made him feel pretty and delicate. Of course, Jimin was also fierce and strong, and living proof that you could be both soft and fierce in equal measure. It was definitely one of the traits that made him so sought after as a model, but the whole fashion industry was so cutthroat it left him exhausted. Signs of softness off camera would immediately be seen as weakness. Fashion houses and agents looking to swoop in like vultures to exploit them. It was a strain to have to keep his defenses up all the time. And from this gift alone, he knew that Jungkook was acutely aware of how tired he was at the moment, both physically and emotionally, how much he needed a break where he could just be himself away from all the pointy bits and sharp edges of life. His lover had gifted him some breathtaking pieces of lingerie over the years, and he had a collection now that reflected his every mood, but this topped them all. It was perfect. Jungkook was perfect in every way. He reached out a finger to stroke them reverently as Jungkook nuzzled into his neck, pressing kisses into the tender skin. "Wear them for me tonight. Beautiful. You know I will. Thank you so much, Kooka. They're gorgeous," he whispered against Jungkook's lips as they kissed over and over, warm, soft kisses that made Jimin feel treasured. "It's my pleasure, baby," Jungkook smiled. "You're going to look so pretty in them. Now come on, let's finish getting ready for dinner. The reservation is for 7 p.m. I made it a bit earlier, so we have plenty of time later for other things." He gently patted Jimin on the bottom, encouraging to hop down so he could head to the closet. "So, does that mean I'll finally find out more about your new project tonight?" Jimin grinned as he stepped into the bathroom out of Jungkook's sight to get dressed. Jungkook, knowing he was wearing his gift, but not being able to see it until later, was part of the fun. The underwear slid along his hips as he pulled them on. The color perfectly complemented his honey skin, but were soon hidden by a pair of black Chanel trousers. "Maybe," Jungkook teased. "Are you curious?" Jimin could hear the rattle as Jungkook sorted through the tray of accessories, looking for a set of silver earrings for his many piercings. "Of course I am," he admitted. "But I trust you." He emerged from the bathroom a moment later, hair styled back off his forehead and a smoky hint of eyeshadow rimming his eyes. He was wearing a cream-colored silk shirt that Jungkook must have known would match his gift exactly when he suggested he pack it. "I'm glad you do," Jungkook whispered as he hooked his arm around Jimin's waist and brought him in close. He was dressed in a suit tonight, expensive fabric tugged tightly around his biceps, and shirt buttons strained to stay closed over his muscular chest. He looked far more Chable executive than his usual unofficial photographer look of baggy clothes and black bucket hat. He was always gorgeous, but tonight he looked smoking hot in a way that left Jimin tingling in all the right places. He reached up and smoothed a wayward strand of dark hair back into place before trailing his fingers down Jungkook's cheek. You sure we want to go out for dinner, baby? He let his fingers drift along the shell of Jungkook's, ear knowing how sensitive it was. He felt his lover shudder under his touch. The tension between them was palpable tonight, electric. Whatever happened tonight, it was going to be explosive. We could always just order room service, he said flirtily. From a look on Jungkook's face, he knew his boyfriend was teetering on the edge of giving in, but the younger had always had more willpower. His stubborn streak was legendary. And tonight, he wasn't going to budge from his plan. Nice try, gorgeous, but nope, he said, squeezing Jimin's firm ass as he pecked his cheek with an affectionate kiss. I made this reservation months ago, but I promise I'll make it up to you when we get back. You ready to go, beautiful? He asked tenderly. Definitely. The sooner we go, the sooner we get back. They ate sushi, fresh and still tasting of the sea. Enough to fill them, but nothing that would weigh down their stomachs or leave them feeling bloated. They held hands over the table, quietly laughing while they made up elaborate stories about the other couples in the restaurant. To be fair, it was obvious none of them were as deeply in love as Jimin and Jungkook were, and it showed. It was easy to tell which couples were only together tonight because it was a holiday and they felt obligated. On one side of them, a stiffly dressed woman and her husband were discussing whether or not to remortgage their house now or wait for a better rate. On the other, a younger man dug into his food as if he hadn't eaten in weeks, while his date scrolled through photos to put on Instagram, her plate practically untouched. Jimin wasn't sure they spoke a word to each other during the entire meal. During dinner, Jimin tried to be patient. He really did. Fish Bank was one of the hottest restaurants in Tokyo, and the waiting list for a table was bordering on 6 months. Even being famous as they were, Jimin wasn't sure how Jungkook managed to get a table on Valentine's Day. Located on the 41st floor, the nighttime view of Tokyo Tower was spectacular, but nothing could beat the sight across the white linen-clothed table in front of him. Jungkook was leaning forward, cheeks flushed from the bottle of champagne they split, the fluted glass twirling in his tattooed hand while the other held Jimin's across the table. The neck of his white/black dress shirt was open wide, and Jimin's eyes lingered hungrily on the swathe of exposed skin at the base of his throat. Having to wait it out until he would be able to put himself wholly into his lover's hands was the sweetest kind of torture. When he felt Jungkook's knee nudge against his inner thigh under the table, he thought he might combust. Would you like dessert, beautiful? Jungkook offered as he poured the final drops of the bottle into Jimin's glass. A little sweet treat after the meal, he teased with a wink as he licked the stray drops of champagne from his fingers. Pay the bill. Now, John, Jimin growled, causing Jungkook to burst out laughing. Or I swear I'll do such things to you in the back of the taxi that we will never be allowed back in Japan again. Jungkook thrust his hand up in the air immediately to catch their server's attention. He paid for the meal in record time and left a hefty tip. Let's go, he grinned as he grabbed Jimin's hand, and the giggling pair hurried out of the restaurant to the elevator that would take them back to street level. The Uber back to the hotel was excruciating for both of them. While the car slipped through the light and dark pools under the streetlights, hands wandered in the darkness, dipping into places they most definitely shouldn't have in public as they both pretended to watch out of opposite windows. The thrill of getting caught sent shivers across Jimin's skin, and he knew from the hardness he felt tugging at the front of Jungkook's trousers that his lover felt the same. They hurried through the lobby, heads down with secret smiles, while bemused hotel staff were left feeling very single as they watched them scuttle towards the elevator, deliriously in love. On the 13th floor, Jungkook cradled Jimin from behind as he slipped the keycard into the lock. The light flashed green as it made a loud click, letting the lovers crash through the door, Jungkook still pressing warm kisses along the sensitive back of Jimin's neck. His strong arms guided Jimin through the short hallway and across the suite, settling him at the edge before backing away. Wait here a moment, babe, he whispered. Jimin leaned back on his hands, admiring his gorgeous lover as he moved efficiently around the room, gathering what he needed. He had all of this planned and knew where everything was, even with the room only dimly lit by the single desk lamp. There was no fumbling or rummaging. Jungkook was always well prepared, and that in itself was sexy. It only took moments before he was back at Jimin's side. He placed another box in Jimin's hands, this one much larger. It had the same matching red ribbon and the same care and attention to the wrapping. Take it in the bathroom with you, gorgeous. Go get yourself ready while I set things up here. He leaned in to leave a lingering kiss on Jimin's lips, warm and enticing. You trust me, right? Of course I do, baby. I know you'll take good care of me. Always beautiful, he promised. Always. I'm going to push you a bit out of your comfort zone tonight, but I promise you I'll take care of you. Is that okay, baby? At any point you want to stop, just tell me and we stop. His eyes were dark and focused, holding Jimin's gaze. He was serious about whatever he had planned tonight, but the thought of being challenged excited Jimin. He wanted to be good for Jungkook, wanted to make him proud. I trust you, Kooka. With a nod, Jungkook stepped away to let Jimin move towards the bathroom. His words lingered in Jimin's mind as he closed the door and opened the wrapped box. Marble tiles underfoot left his feet chilled, and the lights were too bright. But he was a model and used to getting ready in uncomfortable places, where elbows jostled in front of the mirrors and cramped rooms full of the sound of hair dryers and gossip. The package itself didn't reveal any clues to what Jungkook had planned, only an exquisite satin and lace dressing gown to match the underwear he had been given earlier. He undressed slowly, allowing Jungkook plenty of time to set up before sliding the dressing gown over his shoulders. The silky material was smooth and cool as it fell over his chest and brushed across his nipples. The fabric draped beautifully, cascading in soft folds as he let it flow off his shoulder and expose his perfect skin. He sampled a few poses in the bathroom mirror, using the time to get himself into the right frame of mind, and had only just finished touching up his makeup and hair when there was a soft knock on the door. I'm ready when you are, lover. Jimin gave himself a quick spritz of fragrance, warm vanilla and musk, before he opened the door. Jungkook was always fantastic at setting a scene. Like any photographer worth their salt, he had an eye for the details that would elevate any mundane situation to something sublime, but the transformation from high-class hotel room to what he saw before him left him breathless. Standard commercial lights were abandoned for Jungkook's portables, set to diffuse a rosy warm, almost sunset-colored glow. The Bluetooth speaker on the desk oozed sultry jazz, the expensive-sounding kind you'd hear in a piano bar on the Champs-Élysées in Paris or somewhere in Manhattan. The tinkling of ice and flirtation in the background. But the centerpiece of the set was the chaise lounge which Jungkook had moved to sit dramatically in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows and draped in a swathe of shimmering gold satin fabric. The heavy blackout curtains which provided privacy and long morning lie-ins were drawn wide open, and the jeweled lights of the Tokyo skyline sparkled behind. Tokyo Tower again, the gleaming new Azaduai hills rising to dizzying heights, and a million of other lights spilling from buildings across the city, each one a window where a set of eyes might be focused on this very window. Jimin's heart skipped a beat. Did they know? Could they see what was happening here? The thought made him shiver in excitement. He was still marveling at the view when a deep whisper in his ear caught him off guard. You ready, beautiful? The heat of his lover's broad chest spread across his back as he pressed himself close behind him. Jimin nodded. Good, baby. Now I want you to be quiet, okay? No talking tonight. Just sink into it and enjoy yourself, okay? He nodded again, a nervous but excited smile on full lips. Close your eyes. Jungkook's breath was warm and soft on his ear, lips tantalizingly close but not touching. They had barely started and Jimin could already feel his pulse quicken. He did what he was asked, though, and immediately felt a wisp of fabric drop over his eyes. Jungkook's long, tattooed fingers knotted it behind his head. I want you to keep your eyes closed as much as possible, baby. Focus on the sensations, what you're feeling. You'll still be able to see if you open your eyes, though, if you get nervous or scared, and that's okay. If you're uncomfortable at all, just tell me to stop, Min, and we'll stop. Understand? Again, Jimin nodded silently. Good, Jungkook said, taking Jimin by the hand and leading him towards the windows. With his eyes closed, he focused on the sensations around him. The scratchiness of the commercial hotel room carpet under his bare feet, the confidence in his lover's grip under his elbow as he guided him. The The scent of vanilla from a candle he hadn't even noticed was burning. His awareness of it all was heightened. I'm going to start with some profile shots first, baby. Just do what you do best. The softly spoken words came as Jimin felt his back pressed into the wall. The cool air on his left made him think he was near the windows, but he resisted temptation to open his eyes. He trusted Jungkook, and only sighed as he felt him open the silky fabric of the dressing gown, arranging it to expose the skin of his chest. Warmth hovered around him, as if Jungkook was tempted to touch, to run his fingers down the creamy expanse, but resisting for now. The air went chill again as his lover stepped away, and soon after he heard the click of the shutter start. Jimin lifted his chin and straightened his back, instinct taking over as he posed. They were simple first shots and designed to help him feel comfortable, to relax. In a professional setting, they would be used to help build the rapport between the model and photographer. Tonight, between lovers, they were the first step on the intimate journey that would unfold between the two of them tonight. Beautiful, he heard Jungkook whisper, each word and movement deliberately quiet and soft. Jimin ducked shyly at the praise. He was an internationally renowned model. Of course he knew he was beautiful, but something about hearing it whispered from his lover's lips like this hit differently. After a few moments, he heard the sound of the camera being set down and the quiet rustle as Jungkook drew near. The scent of Jungkook's fragrance still clung to his skin, clean and lightly floral. Fingers ran the length of Jimin's satin-covered arms before finding his hands to draw him forward into the next pose. This shoot is all about silhouettes, Jungkook explained quietly. About shapes and light. Keep your hands out in front of you, baby. Jimin kept his hands still, hovering in the air in front of him as Jungkook's touch withdrew for a moment. Soon he could feel the sleeves of the dressing gown being peeled back to his elbows. You ready? He had no idea what he needed to be ready for, but he bit his lip and nodded in response. There was a soft rustle, and the smooth, scratchy feeling of lace danced across his wrist. He titled his head, trying to catch the sensation before it slid away again. Jungkook was teasing him. He smiled. You sure you're ready, baby? Just put your hands down if you're not. Jimin held his hands still, not moving muscle. Outwardly, he was still and confident, but he could feel the excitement skating across his skin and humming in his veins. With every touch, every breath, the heat in his stomach was building. Though he suspected it was coming, he still let out a gasp as he felt the lace knot tightly around his wrist. Now the other one, beautiful. I want you all laced up for me. He crossed his other wrist over obediently and felt Jungkook pull the fabric against it. There we go, he whispered. Now, he took Jimin by his bound wrists and guided him to spin to his left. Towards the window, Jimin thought, I'm directly in front of the window and all those lights. Lift your hands up for me. Jungkook again guided him into place, raising his wrists until his arms were stretched above his head, palms against the cool, smooth glass of the window. That's it, baby. Such beautiful lines. The thin fabric of the dressing gown was no protection, and the panties even less when Jungkook put a firm hand on his back and pressed him forward, nipples and stomach grazing against the cold pane of glass. It was, of course, unlikely that in all the millions of windows in Tokyo, anyone would be watching this particular one, but the thought someone might be watching, that they would see him, hands bound, blindfolded, was enough to send the thrill of it skittering through him. Here he was exposed to the city in nothing but creamy satin and a wisp of lace. He could feel his hardness starting to strain against the thin fabric of the panties despite the cold. Jungkook crooked his finger and peeled the back of the robe to dip back off his shoulders, revealing the crescent moon inked into his skin, the same shape of the one adding its celestial glow to the Tokyo skyline tonight. Now, stay still for me, gorgeous, Jungkook said, then placed the whisper of a kiss on his cheek before retreating. Soon behind him, the camera's shutter whirred and clicked, capturing the dark shape of him against the glittering lights. The song changed to something more sultry, a smoky baritone crooning over piano. Maybe it was because he was so quiet and so still, so aware. Jimin could feel the change in the air when Jungkook came closer, moving behind and around him as he captured his muse from every angle. He leaned so close, Jimin could feel the heat of him near, the sweep of his breath when he spoke. "Can you tip your head back for me, lover?" he asked, finally touching the small of Jimin's back, encouraging him to arch. The movement forced his groin further forward, cold friction against his growing heat. He bit back a moan. "That's it. Perfect." He was sure his skin was flushed now, the rushing of blood in his ears as the thought about what he must look like right now to anyone in the sea of a million windows where someone might be watching. He tried to hold still, but he was so turned on even the swirl of air on his skin as Jungkook changed positions felt like it was enough to make him come. "You're doing so well, Min. So beautiful." He breathed into Jimin's ear, sending shivers up his spine. "We're almost there. Last one now, baby. You ready? Are you still okay?" He nodded, still remembering Jungkook's instructions not to speak. The silence, the way Jungkook had gently taken control, leaving Jimin with nothing to do, but experience had made him feel so loved, so cherished. It's helped him shed stress he didn't even realize he was carrying, putting down the load of daily life to take time to just be his own sensual being. "Good, I'm glad." Jungkook drew him back from the window into arms. Jimin's shoulders ached a bit from keeping his hands above his head so long, but in the way a good stretch aches when it's finally released. He tips his head back onto Jungkook's shoulder, exposing his neck and inviting him closer. "You've done so well, baby. So well." Large hands snaked around his waist until they were caressing the bare skin of his stomach. They skimmed and dipped, teasingly close, but not touching where Jimin needed them most. "Just a little while longer, and you'll get a reward, baby." Jimin whimpered as they brushed against the satin. He was so hard now, achingly so, and could feel the tug of the elastic where his tip was straining to escape. "I know, baby, I know." Deep breath. "Just hold it a little while longer." He felt the back of his knees nudge against the furniture, and Jungkook settled him on the cushions of the chaise lounge. He was laid back, hands still tied and now tucked behind his head. Under his fingers, he could feel the cool satin material and the knot where the lace was tied. He could remove it any time, of course. A willing captive to his lover. Jungkook's hands were working to pose him, gently maneuvering his legs into the position he wanted, caressing deliberately as he went. Each gentle brush and scratch caused Jimin to inhale more deeply as he tried to keep himself from exploding too soon. He was so close, already so very close. Wrapping his hands around Jimin's ankles, he pulled his legs apart, spreading them so that he could climb between. There was a dip in the cushions, and Jimin let out a quiet gasp. His lover hovered over him on his knees, drawing back and arranging the dressing gown, each fold of the fabric excruciating pleasure as it brushed across his nipples. Finally, it seemed his vision was complete as the hands withdrew, leaving Jimin to try and regain his composure again. Above him, the click of the shutter started again. Once, then twice. And then Jungkook shifted, his knee deliberately pressing harder against Jimin's ache. He bit back any sound, but he couldn't help it as his hips bucked up at the touch, seeking more. "That's it, baby. Go ahead." The shutter clicked again and again. "You look so beautiful like that, Min." The praise and sensations, all the anticipation that had been building now cascaded through his veins. Faster and faster the shutter whirred, capturing his every emotion as he sought relief against Jungkook's hard, muscular thigh. He was riding the blissful high and ready to erupt in a shower of stars when suddenly it stopped. The camera fell silent, and Jungkook withdrew, leaving a cold, empty space. He whined aloud at the emptiness, but the sound had barely left his throat before his lover was back. Camera now apparently discarded as his arms swept onto the arch of Jimin's back and his mouth nuzzled hot and wet onto Jimin's stomach. "It's okay, baby. It's okay. I'm here. I've got you." And he did. His mouth was everywhere all at once. Sharp nips followed by fat stripes of his tongue across the taut ridges of Jimin's abs. His fingers slid under the elastic of the creamy satin and tugged to expose him. And then his mouth was back, enveloping him whole. And that was it. Unable to hold back any longer, with a deep, guttural moan, he exploded into the heat and shattered into a million points of dazzling lights. Jungkook was there through it all, holding him, coaxing him, catching him, being the soft arms where he landed, safe and protected. He was still catching his breath when dexterous fingers freed his wrists and lifted the length of lace that had been covering his eyes. The sight he was met with when he opened them was even more dazzling than the blinding white heat he had just returned from. Dark eyes, reflecting the Tokyo lights above a smile that was the very definition of devotion. His hair was ruffled, a mess of black strands pushed off his forehead, and he was dressed only in a pair of black Calvin Klein briefs. To Jimin, he had never looked more gorgeous. "You okay, lover?" He rubbed at Jimin's wrists, massaging them gently to ease them after the strain. There was a little crease between the dark slashes of his eyebrows, a tiny sign he was worried he might have done something wrong despite all the consent Jimin had freely given. Jimin was quick to ease his mind. "Perfect. It was perfect, Jungkook ah." His voice croaked from the long silence, throat dry, and he coughed to clear it, but continued to smile up at his lover. He stretched his arms up, looping them around Jungkook's shoulders and drawing him in close. Their lips met, tender and warm and lovingly gentle until Jungkook collapsed into him, snuggling onto his chest while Jimin threaded his fingers through his hair. "You deserve perfect, Min. I'm not so sure about th-." A mischievous nip to his chest made Jimin laugh. "Don't argue with me," Jungkook teased. "You do deserve perfect. You deserve the whole world. And you know what that includes?" He waggled his eyebrows at Jimin, causing the elder to giggle again. "What's that, babe?" "Champagne. Oh, you really are perfect." Jimin sighed, dreamy smile on his lips. "I'll be right back." Jungkook pecked his lover's lips one more time before he hopped up and off the chaise lounge. He was just drawing the chilled bottle out of the mini fridge when a knock at the door made Jimin's eyes go wide. He scurried to pull the dressing gown around him, though the sheer fabric was not made for modesty. Mercifully, the door itself was not visible from where he was sitting in front of the windows. "Don't worry, baby. It's just room service," he assured him as he quickly dropped an oversized hoodie over his head and grabbed for his sweatpants. While his lover signed for the check, his gaze drifted out again over the lights. Behind any of them could be a pair of eyes. Had anyone seen him? Would they have recognized him from the cover of a magazine, if they did? He blushed at the memory of feelings of arousal that washed through him as his hardness was pressed up against the glass. A glass of champagne, icy cold, was nudged into his hand as Jungkook sat down beside him. The liquid was golden, and tiny bubbles like a string of pearls fizzed to the surface. He could tell by the yeasty aroma it was his favorite brand. "I thought you might be hungry again after all that, so I arranged for that dessert we skipped at the restaurant." He grinned like a bunny, nose scrunched up and glowing with satisfaction at Jimin's happiness. Proud of himself for having orchestrated such a special night. Smug even. "Cheesecake. There's chocolate-covered strawberries, too. I know they are your favorites." He dropped a kiss on Jimin's cheek, then leaned back on one hand and sipped his own glass of wine. "You think of everything, don't you?" Jimin shook his head, still wondering how he ever managed to be lucky enough to find a soulmate like Jungkook, someone who not just met his needs, but anticipated his every desire and took pleasure in finding creative ways to fill them. "Nah, I don't have to think of everything." He dipped his head and smiled shyly. "I just think of you, Min." There was a lump in Jimin's throat, endorphins still chasing through his system and leaving his emotions raw. He knew nights like this were never really about the photos. They were Jungkook's love language, a chance to show Jimin how deeply he understood his needs and how much he cared. Jimin transferred his wine to the other hand and reached out to lift Jungkook's chin. How could eyes be so wide and dark, the size of a galaxy and full of as many stars? They hid nothing. Every thought and emotion was so clearly visible in their depths. And tonight, when Jungkook looked at Jimin, their infinity was full of nothing but love. "If I really do deserve perfection, then I guess that's why I have you." Wine set aside, he twisted to climb into Jungkook's lap. Creamy satin against the thick cotton-rich fabric of Jungkook's sweats. Hands twisting into Jungkook's hair as they kissed, deep and warm and loving. Moon embracing the sun, that warms him with his glow. Lost in each other, lost in the lights, dreaming on in a love so infinite time itself steps aside for them and destiny smiles.
Thank you so much for listening. I know the world is a hard place right now, and I really hope this story brought a bit of comfort to your day. If you enjoyed the story, please remember to like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to know when a new story is released. You can find the written version of this and all my stories on my Patreon for free at patreon.com/cjmoon. I love you. I purple you. Sarangay.